Correct. Thanks, Don. So I'll start, just with a few brief comments. You should be able to see the resolution, uh, on your screen, and I'll point to a couple specific places momentarily. The backdrop, of this obviously is the recent hostile actions, the war in Ukraine taken by the Russian government. As a result of that, we've seen a host of domestic and international sanctions brought to bear on the Russian government. And along with that, we've seen a multitude of public and private entities take actions against various aspects of Russia and its government. Among them, several of the state pension plans have voted to divest. The city's pension plan voted to divest last week, and just this morning, PGW's OPEB trust voted to take similar action. Just some brief comments on what's going on, financially with Russia. There's been, as I mentioned, sanctions on major Russian financial institutions, debt and equity restrictions on some of their largest enterprises and entities, sanctions on individual politicians and oligarchs. Some costs have been brought to bear on Belarus for supporting the invasion of Ukraine. And there's been restrictions really across the globe to try to choke off a lot of Russian, imports, most recently with the U.S. choosing to ban the importing of Russian oil. You'll note from an email or a couple of emails I sent out last week that the sinking fund's exposure to Russia was very minimal. Only two of our funds, both on the equity side, had any exposure. There was no bond exposure. Rumline, which is one of our index funds, had, as you would imagine, exposure in line with its relevant MSCI index. And Acadian, one of our two active international managers, had just under index weighting. In terms of the options, available to us, most stocks and Russian securities at this point are largely frozen. They're not tradable. Traders and plans such as ourselves are waiting for markets to open back up. But I don't think that stops the commission, nor should it stop the commission from taking action, if not, identical to or very similar to the resolution that's outlined on your screen. And I should note, with the exception of a couple of paragraphs on page 2 that deal with the Home Rule Charter and various other ordinances, this resolution, which was put together by the compliance officer for the pension board, Jim Kasanis, is identical in all respects except for those the second and third whereas clause on page 2. The relevant portion in terms of action would be on page 3, sections 1, 2, and 3, which would authorize the investment staff, the law department, and the consultant, in this case PFM, to take all appropriate action to sell, redeem, withdraw, or divest in any asset held by Russian-related entities or individuals as expeditiously and prudently as possible. It does not require or construe a sale or divestment when it's inconsistent with applicable law, orders, rules, regulations, and our duties as a fiduciary. And it would also require myself, obviously assisted by PFM, but it would require me to come back in 30 days at a minimum, no later than 30 days, and inform the commission of actions, if any, that we've been able to take pursuant to this resolution. Again, exposure very minimal. I don't believe causes any breach or concerns around fiduciary duty. Again, a lot of the securities are frozen at the moment. I'm happy to take questions. I'm happy to have PFM chime in with comments or kind of take this any direction that Don, Rebecca, and Fran would like to take it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
The holdings just will stay holdings until the freezes lift in terms of trading.
Correct. The managers that were able to get out of things, while some of these regulations were coming down, did do that. Just by way of example, one of the managers in this fund, MetLife, although not with identical holdings to the pension fund, they were able for the pension fund to get out of a couple of bond holdings before all of the restrictions came down. While markets stay closed, yes, these would remain. Most of them have been marked down either to zero or very close to. The indexes, MSCI, for example, is taking steps to move Russian securities out of the index entirely. So then going forward, it will be its own standalone index or securities for folks who want to invest in them. And when the markets open back up at a date to be determined, investors such as ourselves would then move in a prudent fashion to divest ourselves of these holdings as soon as we could.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Don or Fran, PFM, Nick, any other comments or concerns or questions?
Yeah, and I don't recall, and maybe you shared it with us, but what is our total exposure to these types of securities?
It's very small. So let me just pull. I want to say it was, well, here it is. I actually have it right in front of me. It was before the markets were frozen, and I believe the last time PFM and I measured it, 0.085% of the portfolio before markets were frozen. So an extremely limited exposure to the Russian market. Again, index exposure through Rumline, and then exposure that was just under an index like from Acadian. Ernest, who's the third international manager and active manager, had no Russian exposure of any kind.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Well, we have the resolution in front of us. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes, I will second the motion.
Right. The motion has been made and properly seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. The motion passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be meeting again next
business
week.
that we need to cover?
No, we're meeting again next week for the regular meeting. We'll get materials out in the next couple of days. I'm just waiting, obviously for performance data. But I'll get materials out the next couple of days and look forward to seeing everyone next week.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Is there a
Thank
motion
you.
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, sure.
I will second the controller's motion.
All right.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Have a good.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
See you,
afternoon.
Good to
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
all.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Oh, Chris,
Yeah.
are we gonna go back to in person at some point? Or no?
You talking about the
Hang on.
municipal fund or the sinking fund?
Oh, I guess sinking fund, municipal. I just was curious.
I mean, that's up to the commission members. I'm certainly happy to put that as a discussion item for next week. I assume next week will remain virtual since that's the
Oh,
way
of course.
it's scheduled.
I'm happy to stay virtual. I don't mean to push the issue. I was
No.
just curious.
No, it's totally up to you and Don and Fran. I'll when the three of you or a majority tells me that you want to meet in person, I'll be happy to schedule the meetings that way. So I have no objection either way. You just keep me posted on how you want to handle it.
And I'll
Okay.
defer to Don and Rebecca because I'm mostly in the office. I'm fine either way.
So what's happening with the Philadelphia fund?
Well, we've had a request from one two trustees to inquire as to when we are going to go in person. There are many trustees who I believe enjoy the convenience of the virtual meetings, but so right now we're scheduled out, Don, because we have to advertise in advance. We are scheduled out for the next couple months virtual. However, if the board decides they want to meet in person, we can change that. But as of right now, the next meeting, the March meeting is scheduled to be virtual. So, and we've been meeting virtual up, up to this point.
Yeah, I'd be happy. I mean, I'm happy with either, but I would be happy to go back. So just so that you both know.
Okay,
All right.
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yep,
Thank
have
you
a good
very much.
afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks.